welcome back to the Camilla Tominey Show on GB News. I'm delighted to be joined now by former Labour Minister Bill Rammell and Lib Dem Federal Board member Callum Robertson to discuss that interview with Kemi Badenoch. First of all, Bill, she demanded a personal apology from David Tennant after he said she should shut up and disappear because of her views on transgender issues. What do you reckon? He should apologise, shouldn't he? He was very rude.
He should. Look, I'm a fan of David Tennant's, but I think he was wrong. It was unpleasant. And say he was wishing for a world where she doesn't exist. My God, language matters in politics. Yeah. We've had 2 MPs murdered in the last few years. That's unacceptable. And also, she should just shut up. It had a whiff of misogyny about it. But also, we need free speech and open debate to resolve problems.
I would broadly agree. It's language matters, doesn't it? I strongly disagree with Kemi Badenoch's views. She has a right to have those views. I will debate those views. I will discuss those views. Of course I will. But I think, the particular word shut up, that whiff of misogyny that doesn't help the debate at all. It doesn't help the discussion. And when you don't help the discussion, actually what it does is it inflames a culture war that doesn't need inflamed.
Yes.
In his defence, I was talking to someone yesterday who was at the award ceremony and a lot of drink had been imbibed and that may have contributed. It doesn't excuse it.
Doesn't excuse it. It may explain it, but it doesn't justify it. In general, what did you make of that interview? I mean, she presented herself very well and very strongly. She's clearly, she wouldn't say it to me, but there's an inevitability about her standing for the leadership, right?
Assuming she wins her seat, which is still a question mark. I think she is. It was about positioning for the leadership. She was constantly trying to set up false dividing lines with the Labour Party. So when she said, if we'd been in government, we wouldn't have supported Ukraine, not a shred of evidence to back up that statement. But in terms of communication, I think it was effective. And assuming she does win her seat, then I think clearly she can stand for the leadership.
Yeah, Callum, did you have much sympathy when she said it breaks her heart to see people who are traditional Tory voters voting for reform?
The level of child poverty that this government has inflicted on us breaks my heart. Frankly, her sort of slight pity party about the fact that her government has screwed everything up, I don't feel sympathy for that at all. I feel sympathy for the families hit by her government's cost of living crisis. I feel sorry for the families that are being really badly hit by inflation going through the roof.
Although it's come down.
It's still going. It's still, obviously, we're still in a stage where growth is sluggish as well. We're not in a good place as a country. Our public services starved. I'm a school teacher by trade, and actually, we don't have enough specialist teachers.
Well, are you confident that all these problems will be solved by a Labour government?
They physically. I want a Lib Dem government, but they physically can't be worse than the current Tories. And I think that's the mood of the country summed up. It's actually people are just do you know what? Screw it. I don't particularly like Keir Starmer, or I'm not enthusiastic about Keir Starmer, but he seems fundamentally a relatively decent person.
Yeah.
Whereas Sunak seems...
Well, Bill, you say that, we've discussed it, and we're going to see my interview with Pat McFadden in just a moment, where I sort of put to him that he is extremely unpopular, Starmer. He's down on -19 and Tony Blair was on +22. But just back to Kemi Badenoch, this idea that if she is the woman to reunite the right, that the right should be right and shouldn't just be wishy-washy centrist. What's your response to that? Because it's quite difficult for the Tories of the future. Can they outright reform? Maybe not, but equally, this kind of centrist position that was occupied by David Cameron and George Osborne now seems to have worked against them, and that's why so many people are voting for reform.
I don't think they can outright reform, and I don't think they should. My question mark for Kemi Badenoch is she right-wing enough to win the leadership amongst the Tory electorate?
Well, do you not think she is right-wing enough?
No, I think if you look at some of her track record, for example, on Brexit deregulation, she's offended some of the people on the hard right of the Tory party. So I think that's a question for her.
Yeah.
But if she's selected as the leader, she then positions them further towards the reform end of the spectrum. The Tories can't win from there. Fundamentally in this country, and I think this general election is demonstrating.
Well, hang on a minute. Boris Johnson won with the support of Brexit Party voters who, ergo, are probably reform voters, right?
Unique circumstances. People were sick and tired after 2 years of wrangling over Brexit, wanted to get it done, and Jeremy Corbyn was unelectable.
Yeah. Do you agree with that analysis, Callum? Otherwise, we've got a lot of different parties. We've got a Labour supermajority occupying centre-left. We've got a Liberal Democrat Party occupying, I'd say, left. Would you disagree with that?
I'd say we broadly occupy the centre.
Centre, all right. And then you've got, other independent candidates, the Green and everything. So the question for the right is how right-wing the Tories become.
I think that there's sort of a circular Venn diagram between how right-wing you become and how detached from reality you are. Ultimately, what is some of the stuff Kemi Badenoch is plugging
is polling
today?
better than the Lib Dems, so why are you saying that?
Because actually, whilst they might be polling ever so slightly better than us, well, actually, if we look at what they're advocating for will make the very people they're appealing to's lives worse.
Oh yeah, but they're more popular. So how can you be saying that you're right and they're wrong?
Just because someone's popular in a view, it doesn't necessarily mean they're right.
For the Lib Dems to win, they've got to get more votes, and they've certainly got to get more votes than Reform. I appreciate first past the post is going to benefit them, but the vote share's small, isn't it, for the Lib Dems?
We're sitting between about 12 and 15%.
I know, Reform are up at 17 to 25, if you believe other pollsters.
15 to 19, roughly.
But you know what? What's interesting? If this campaign went on for another 2 weeks, I think the Reform vote would start to fall, because Farage is coming under scrutiny now, and it really doesn't add up. And I think it's beginning to fall apart, the seams.
Bill Rammell, Callum Robertson, I know you're going to be with us for the rest of our election coverage. Thank you very much indeed for joining me this morning.